Hey guys, thanks for taking the time and helping out with the, as we know, October Cyber Awareness Month. I'm Kevin Bobrovsky, founder and president of Lighthouse Integrations. We do a lot of cybersecurity, and we're reaching out to all of our friends in the cyber community just to get some real, true stories of what's going on out there. We're going to record these, and then we're just going to post them to our website and allow people to comment on that. We'll do some follow-up videos should we need to. So, without further ado, if you guys want to introduce yourself, and we'll get right into the meat of the content. Vernon, if you want to start, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, Vernon here, CISO at Foresight. I have my team joining me. I'll pass it over to Reza and then Joseph.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on. Reza Samanfar here, Senior Cybersecurity Consultant at Foresight, and I'll pass it over to Joseph.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I'm also a senior cybersecurity consultant. Happy to be here.
Thanks, guys. So what we're doing is we're just having some casual conversations. I meet with a whole bunch of different business owners and individuals. What we look at with cyber nowadays is not just a big company issue. It's an everyone issue. It's an every business issue. So what we're trying to get out of these discussions is just some advice from you guys, some of your stories of the things that you encounter, and just some feedback that you can give to people, because I think there's still a very, very strong, we read it in the newspaper, we see it all the time. I'm sure glad it doesn't happen to me mentality. And if we don't, at least, if we can share some of the stories that just explains that it does happen to everybody, and give a little bit of impact on what happens when it does happen, because even some of the people that are sort of on the fence still feel like, maybe their event wasn't so bad. Maybe they lost a couple $1,000s or whatever, and it's just like, wow. But it can get a lot worse than that. So how about, I don't know who wants to start, but just sharing some of the stuff that you guys see and do on a regular basis, some of the misunderstandings and some of the, real dirty stuff that's going on out there.
I'll pass it over to Joseph to start. I'm pretty sure he has some interesting things.
Awesome. Okay, Joseph. You are on mute.
Okay, he is still on mute.
He's back.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Apologies for that. My internet dropped for a second. Could you give me a rundown?
Sure. We're just talking about some of the stories, some of the things that you encounter on a daily basis. I want to let everybody know just how, what the impact really is. You hear about these stories. It's always, arm's length away. It may happen to them, but it's sort of maybe minor. But let's hear about some of the stuff that you guys deal with on a regular basis, and some things and takeaways that you can offer people.
Yeah. On a day-to-day we deal with a lot of people who've been phished. We deal with people who they don't know what they don't know in terms of what's going on. We deal with a lot of people dealing with the end result of a lot of decisions that have been made for 30 years. And we deal with a lot of dangerous but default. And it covers the entire spectrum. You've got small charities out there who they don't even have the staff to really figure stuff out. And they're struggling to deal with stuff that really should be out of the box changed for them. An old example that doesn't apply now, but it is my favorite, was SMB signing not being enabled. This would allow an attacker to sometimes get a foothold in 5 minutes. There were plenty of mitigations, but by default, people were insecure. This led to us showing a lot of organizations just how quickly an attacker could get a foothold through LLM MNR poisoning, or the relay attacks. But then there's stuff like phishing, where just the other day we had a company who was large, well-trained employees, and they still click on phishing emails. So just for the entire spectrum, people are being impacted every day by this stuff.
Yeah. So go ahead, Vernon. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add to that. So in Canada, a lot of businesses are small to medium, right? That's just a fact. Whether it's a home run business or small organization, everything is done in-house to a certain degree, right? rarely do we see companies use MSPs. A lot of charities, as was mentioned, there's a lot of non-for-profits as well in Canada that we work with, a few bigger ones, but there are a lot out there, and they're missing the basics. And their staff are missing the basics as well. And it's just, you're in a role, IT evolves, you don't, right? It's all about budgeting. It's about getting resources. So we're seeing that as a big pain point as well. And as Joseph mentioned, phishing is a really big thing. And we see these smaller organizations be a jumping point, right? So I will come into your organization, I will try to breach you, and then from you, I will launch other attacks. So it could be like a supply chain attack where now I'm going to go after your accounting company. I'm going to go after maybe your cleaning services company, or I'm going to go after the association that this charity or this not-for-profit might be part of. So we might think, oh, my company is small, my organization is tiny, I only deal with X, Y, and Z, but we would use you as a launch point to attack people around you and organizations around you. And that's a great way of spreading. I shouldn't say it's a great way of spreading, it's an easy way of spreading from an attacker perspective, but we need to do our best to stop the bleeding from the very, at the very beginning for the small, medium-sized companies, because that's the majority of Canada right there.
Yeah, and I think that the goal for that is the trust factor, right? And they're dealing with people. So we can put in the best technology in the world, but if people aren't, it's almost like I always tell people, you have to be just actively paranoid all the time right now. So it's not necessarily looking for the, the grammatic errors and all of the different things that we used to see, 5 or 6 years ago. It's pretty clever now. And like you say, they're actually going through known sources. So how do you, what is the goal? Why do they do that? Like if I go in and I compromise your account to launch into somebody else and start this whole web of compromised emails, why would I do that?
Ooh, right off the bat, extortion. They want to steal information. They want to launch ransomware. They want to just sit and monitor. There's many reasons. For some of the organizations, it's actually just collecting data and using it for the future. A great example is, say, for example, I compromise a mid-tier city in Canada, and I'm just sitting there monitoring. I'm looking for building permits. I'm looking to see what the city is doing. I'm looking to see where I might be able to buy land, what future planning might look like, where budgeting might go. I might attack critical infrastructure. I might hit you with ransomware. There's so much I could do with a mid-sized city. It's unbelievable, right? I can go after other cities. I can monitor the mayor. I can monitor city council. That's just one example right off the bat. Even small companies as well within Canada that have, integrations into non-for-profits and government orgs, they all talk to each other. They all go for funding. There's a lot of monitoring that can be done. I can hit your bank accounts. Extortion is, I think, untalked about. That's my favorite thing. I think blackmail and extortion is my favorite thing from an internal threat perspective. The person in your organization doesn't necessarily have to actively be malicious, right? They don't want to hurt you, but sometimes if they're blackmailed or extorted, they might just have no choice. They're afraid, and they're going to hit you that way. So we do see a massive uptick in that side.
Wow. Yeah, that's one of those sobering thoughts of how deep it does go, as opposed to that sort of on the surface. It's like, they got my email account, I went and reset the password, so everything's good. But the knock-on effect of that is, it may not be your company. It may be the company next in line that gets breached. What are some of the more interesting situations that you guys have gone through? Like, what's a real life story of something that's happened that you guys have sort of, and I know I'm putting you on the spot for that one, but there's always, those good stories from the, the dark side of, holy cow, I didn't think they could get through, or they couldn't do this.
Reza, go for it.
I was like, I can think of one. Well, the thing is, we engage a lot of different companies, and then whenever there's a social engineering component to it, it's like a fun add-on to the project. And to double down on the topic that we discussed, social engineering and phishing attacks are, in my opinion, evolving, and it's not those I got a gold chest from some country, please send me your information and we can share the profit, whatever not. And with a lot of typos, I encountered one phishing email actually targeted. I was a target, and then the bank accounts and the login pages and everything was built perfectly. The MFA token could be taken, so no more defense in that perspective. And we kind of leverage these things ourselves. I can remember that one of the engagements that we had, we were initially assessing this company, and initial point was to see how susceptible they are to phishing, to vishing. We get to interact with people, and then without directly thinking about it, we realize we can compromise some of their very high profile, high value customers that is getting out of scope of the engagement. Obviously, we don't engage in that regard and we stop and we report, but being in that on the other side of the fence and seeing how a simple phishing or a vishing conversation can lead to a full compromise of a very high value person in our account is very frightening, to be honest.
I can add to that a little bit. So, in question was a construction company, right? And this high net individual hired them to build a very expensive house. Blueprints, floor plans, alarm system, everything. So that's one use case. So we work with a few higher eds as well, and a lot of like very high net worth individuals send their kids to these schools, and just the ability to know, how far and deep we got into compromising these schools and the amount of information we had, it's pretty shocking. From there, you can jump to the teachers as well, and just knowing, the address of these kids' information, right? Date of birth, allergies, you name it, right? So if I want to target, say, for example, a high net worth individual, a private individual, a C-level, an executive, whatever, right? I tell a lot of people, I'm not going after you. I'm not going after your company. I'm going after your weakest link, which is your family members, right? I'm going after your significant other, and I'm going after your kids. Might sound brutal, right? Might sound harsh, but I'm looking for low-hanging fruit, right? Why would I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and spending resources and several months trying to hack your company, which has a ton of security, versus I can go after your kids or your kid's school or your doctor's office or your dentist's office or where your partner works out, whatever it might be. Maybe spend a week, maybe two, a few $100, maybe have a few phone calls, and I will find out where you live, and some other information. There's, again, I go back to blackmail and extortion. Super simple, super easy, super cheap.
Yeah, this is what I love about the conversations with you guys, because you guys do a lot of the ethical hacking side of things. So you really play on that fence of both sides of it. So you get in the minds of the criminals, and you can actually go there. And even some of the stories, Vernon, that you shared with me before about, wrapping up gifts for company parties and things like that you've already infected. But, people are thrilled to get it, and the executives, they're as happy to get a gift as anybody. So those little footholds that you can get in there can be so simple. It doesn't have to be these overly complicated. The other side of it, we deal with a lot of the people that are on the cleanup side of things, and cleaning up these messes afterwards is a nightmare. So two things I want to touch on before we kind of end the call. I'd like to get your take on where AI is both on the good side of cybersecurity, and also, probably more importantly for people, is how is it impacting the abilities and capabilities of the hackers that you've seen so far?
This is a great question. And the best way I can put it is, it comes down to money, right? Like, we work with a few large companies that have great cybersecurity, right? They resell their products. For anything AI related, there's a big price associated with it, right? If you want to go leverage a cybersecurity tool like a SIM, endpoint security, cloud security that has AI, big price point, right? Now, I'm a hacker, right? I want to leverage AI. What is that going to cost me? $20 US a month?
Yeah.
Right? My price point to attack you is like maybe $100, right? Your price point to defend could be at least a few million.
So yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, like we haven't already fought the uphill battles as we go. So it's I know that with the modern kind of AI and the generative AI to be able to do the coding and stuff, you can do anything and you don't need to be a coder at all. So it sounds like we're going to be in an uphill battle in the next kind of 3 to 5 years as we fight our way through AI. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, I like if you just look at the number of attacks we see increasing year after year after year. Before it was cloud computing, right? Increased that spike in terms of the number of malware and the number of phishing attacks that we would get. Now, when you throw AI on top of that, it's just massively spiked that drastically. And that's terrible, right? And the thing we need to remember is that, you know, Joseph has mentioned this many times to many of our customers is even though they might not be able to decrypt the information, right? They still want it. And the reason for that is they can sit on it and wait till they can figure out a way to unencrypt that information. So you might hear these large breaches where customer A gets hacked and, you know, 30 terabytes of data was stolen, but we're okay because it was encrypted, right? And then customer B, C, D, and you go down the list. And we see a massive, obviously, uptick in terms of companies using AI, like organizations using AI to spawn new malware, create new attacks. Joseph's created his own AI pen test bot thing that does a whole bunch of cool stuff. And you know, we all have our little AI models that we use to do different things and help us code and help us do some new things. And the attackers are just looking to steal information. They don't care, right? If it's encrypted, unencrypted, what kind of data set it is, they can sell it, they can sit on it. And it's what is the future use case that's coming down that we're going to see. And organizations don't seem to understand that point because they're so focused on the now and the tech debt that they have that they don't understand and see that the hackers are looking 5, 10, 15 years down the road in terms of what they can do with that data. And again, it might go back to blackmail and extortion and ransomware and just selling your data.
That's a great point, Vernon, because we talk about AI and how quickly it's changing the landscape, but we didn't even talk about quantum computing and all of the other sort of technical breakthroughs that are coming, which are going to break all the cryptography and all the stuff that we said would take, you know, 1,000 years to decrypt. They're already, you know, figuring out ways to do it fairly quickly. So
yeah,
scary stuff. So to end things off, what bits of advice do you have for, first of all, just the end user, the person that's sitting at home, you know, because we get personal attacks, not just businesses, but they target anybody, right? You already mentioned a bunch of people that have high self-worth. Well, they're a target, but it doesn't mean that we don't, you know, we aren't seeing it on our daily basis. So what advice would you have for the individual? And then what advice would you have for the business owner as far as what can I do about this?
From an individual perspective, it's easier. And I'll just go with 3 tips. Number 1, multi-banking. Don't have all your money in one bank account and use that one bank account for everything, because say something does happen, right? And you have one credit card and one bank account, you're kind of hooped, right? So that's one strategy is, from a financial perspective, have more than one bank account just in case. Number 2, stop using your personal phone number for everything, right? You will give out your phone number to anybody, right? It's like, hey, you want a free ice cream cone at a restaurant? What's your email address? What's your phone number? What's your name? Hey, you want this 10% coupon? Give us this info. Stop doing that. Stop using your one email for everything. Stop using your phone number for everything, and get a burner number. I've said this many times. Have multiple email accounts for different things. And the other thing is use a VPN service, get a password vault. Super simple, super easy. That's what I would recommend from an end user perspective. I'll pass it over to the team if they have any other things to add.
Yeah, I wanted to add for the end user, if someone calls you and they say they're from X, hang up and go call their number, Google their number and call that number instead and say, hey, I just got a call from whatever they introduce themselves as. It just helps prevent you from getting phished, even if you are very sure that it's the person calling you is from that organization. And also for the business, this is my personal thing, but I think that for too long we've allowed sort of dangerous default policies, and I think putting pressure on your vendors to ship things secure despite it breaking compatibility with legacy use cases, that at some point we do have to draw a line and not keep things the way they were just because it'll be a lot of effort to migrate people who already have it to the new security standards. I think that is the cause of a lot of technical debt that right now your IT is dealing with, but in my opinion, should have never been on your IT team's shoulders. It should have been on the vendor to ship it secure. And then if you need a feature enabled that makes it slightly insecure, to enable that for yourself.
I
Okay,
want to
Reza,
add.
take us home, buddy.
Yeah. I was gonna add one thing in particular. I was just gonna say, for the end user specifically, take a moment. Unless it's a medical emergency, nothing is in a rush. Whether it's a prize or something urgent, just take a moment. You'll see the signs. Whether it's a prize you won, whether it's the normal bank account that you're trying to log in again and they sent you a reminder, you'll figure out that this is not the way it usually happens. Whether it's the malicious URL that you spot or that something's off on the text, most of these attacks succeed when we don't take the time and we do whatever mindlessly or multitasking or anything. Just take the time, think it through. It'll come to you, and then you'll see the signs.
Yeah, that's great. And it's like your biggest asset is your gut, right?
Yeah. I have one last thing to add, which is kind of in a dark space. There's this new attack out there, which is, you can make an AI dupe of an individual's voice, even a video, and a few things there. So there's a new attack is calling older individuals and saying, hey, I have your kid, right? I have your, and if you don't pay X, Y, and Z, if you don't send me crypto money order or whatever, immediately we might hurt them, we might kill them, whatever that might be. So in that instance, right, your heart's pounding, adrenaline's pumping through you, your brain is blank, you've never heard of this attack before. The number could be even spoofed from your kid's phone, and you're like, holy shit, what do I do? Right? As Reza mentioned, take a moment, right? I know this is going to sound crazy, hang up.
Yeah.
And then go and dial the number that you have of the person that they're so-called threatening and talk to them, right? And actually verify, because these attacks are going to increasingly get worse, right? And just think of it from an attacker perspective. If I'm actually have kidnapped somebody or whatever that might be, and if you hang up on me, right, I will most likely try to call back. Because at the end of the day, they're doing it to get paid or to get access or whatever that might be, right? They will call back. So it's okay to take a moment, hang up, and go verify, and then deal with the situation after the fact versus letting that impact you in that moment. So I know it's a little bit morbid, but just take that extra time, take a breather, think about it logically, and then react.
It is morbid, by the way. But it's also the cool thing about that advice, Vernon, is it's going to stand the test of time, right? Like it doesn't matter with the technology, and it's going to get, it'll be more convincing, it'll be more difficult. And Reza, your point, take that minute just to pause, because it's working on emotions is our biggest sort of vulnerability as people, and that's sort of what you're triggering there. Is they're getting deeper and darker into the emotions, but that's the trend that we're seeing. So it's unfortunately just going to get worse until we can start to adapt the way we think about things and the situations, and just constantly be on alert. So with that said, I love talking to you guys, because like I say, you guys take a different spin on it, just because you can sit on both sides of the fence and sort of see how easy it is in many ways, and the goals and objectives behind it. Whereas, a lot of the others, and even including myself, you see the impact and the effects. You understand the risks, you understand the tools, but sometimes you don't really understand the motivation behind it, or what the knock-on effect of you know, what may seem like a simple event actually can have some pretty damaging outcomes for not just you, but, you know, people that you know, business colleagues, different things like that. So it's getting worse. We need to spread more of these sort of stories. And again, you guys, I thank you, Reza, Joseph, Vernon. You know, keep up the good work. We're going to talk again soon. And I'm probably going to have more of these recordings just because it's really, really important to share these stories because it gives me chills every time too. So thank you guys and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.